Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Asaf Ramarowski, the Executive Director of SPME, and it's my pleasure to once again welcome you to our webinar series, Conversations. This afternoon, we have the privilege and honor, a man who needs no introduction, really, to talk to us this afternoon, my friend and colleague, Judea Pearl, who is going to be talking about his latest book, Coexistence and Other Fighting Words. Judea Pearl is obviously is the father of the slain Daniel Pearl, who has been working on fighting these issues since Daniel was murdered, and has been a strong advocate for tackling issues of anti-Semitism, BDS, and the environment on American college campuses. He's been a staunch fighter and explaining these issues at UCLA. And internationally through the work of the Daniel Pearl Foundation and many of the other works that he does and his writings. So really, it's really an honor to have Judea this afternoon talk to us about this latest volume that he put together, showcasing much of the work that he's done over the past few years. Format-wise, anybody who's been with us in the past knows Judea will talk for about 20 minutes or so. Then we'll go into Q&A. And of course, Q&A will be via the chat. So feel free to type in your questions and we'll do our best to get to them in a timely fashion. So Judea, welcome. And without further ado, the virtual floor is yours. You start talking and then we'll chime in and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Asaf, for having me on. We've known each other for many years, and not in front of a camera. I believe it's the first time. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce my new book to an audience, to your audience, which is dear to me. Well, the book is called Coexistence and Other Fighting Words. And many ask me why I chose this title. First, coexistence is something which is dear to our heart, to every Zionist, every Jew, I would say. And unfortunately, our predators and adversaries are taking coexistence to be an insult, if not humiliating defeat, which means that coexistence is still in a stage where it needs to be imposed. It doesn't come easy, it doesn't come naturally, where it should come naturally. So the book has to do with my travels, my journeys in many communities, trying to advocate the idea of coexistence and describing the resistance which I encountered from many communities, and that includes the Muslim world, a trip to Doha in 2005, dialogues with Muslims, and dialogues and appearance before Jewish communities on colleges, and so on and so on. Every community needs to have its own language, its own vocabulary to understand what is going on in the Middle East. I have formed my own picture, my own lens, I should say, through which everything is explained. And normally people are telling me, people are telling us that the Middle East is such a complex combination of problems and nuances. They're all entangled and they're beyond the comprehension of ordinary mortals. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I see things very simply. It's a very simple, it's a conflict that lends itself to very simple description. It's an asymmetry between two legitimate sides. One advocate coexistence, and the other advocate soul existence. That explains everything from the question of why the conflict has been raging on for 100 years with no resolution in sight, why all the shuttle diplomacy has failed, and up to questions such as why um, all the task force designated by university to deal with anti-Semitism has produced nothing, I repeat, nothing of value in terms of combating anti-Semitism on campus. And any question that has to do with that, once you bring it to under the light of this lens, becomes explainable and one can handle it. And it provides us with um, action items, with understanding of what needs to be done in order to make even an iota of progress in this terrible conflict. If you have any questions, please interrupt me because I haven't prepared a formal lecture on the book. I would like just to talk about why I wrote it. I wrote it because I found myself already 25 years after I was thrusted into the public arena to talk about issues that are normally not in the center of my scientific world. People know me as a computer scientist who focuses on artificial intelligence, especially on causal reasoning and the history of ideas. But I was thrusted into the public life by the murder of my son Danny. And since then, I had the opportunity to apply some of my understanding of human argumentation into those issues that I described before. Uh, And many friends have looked at my essays and told me that my perspective is unique and my method of analysis are unique. So I decided to put it down in one volume with index and with glossary and with even a timeline of Jewish history from Abraham to October 7th. So that is the reason why I published this book recently. It came out on December 10, and you can buy it in Amazon and any other outlets. And I'm going through a series of promotional dialogues and promotional webinars like this one and answer questions that come in the reader's mind. Um,
All right, I will take I will Judea, I will start us off and ask the first question because you and I have known each other for a long time, and and I think that there's a lot to discuss, and your story is very powerful and important to the conversation. One of the things that you've been a strong advocate for, and you've actually written several op-eds on this, and I know it's in the book, is the terminology and the definition of the words that you think that were not stressfully important. Especially, we spoke about Zionophobia is one of your words, Judeophobia, as far as trying to highlight the significance and the threats. Here we are, historically speaking, we are 25 years after 9/11. We've seen an explosion of Islamism on American college campuses. We've seen, threats coming to American society, not only higher education, but also K through 12. why don't you talk, if you could tell us a little, to your mind today, do you think that, what do we need to do to highlight the threats that we're looking at today? Has your mind changed over
Yeah,
the years?
my
Really?
mind has not changed. No,
Okay.
I just got additional points of evidence to reinforce my perception of the conflict and of our predicament. So let me explain the word xenophobia and why it is important that we adapt such fighting words. First, it came to me early in the 2000, the recognition that we are not fighting the right war. If you look at the commonality among all our adversaries, the the common thread in all of them are one simple thing: inability to absorb and internalize the idea of Jewish self-rule anywhere in Palestine. This is a common thread throughout that explains, for instance, why all the Muslim states that voted against the partition of the November 29, 1947, right, were Muslims. Oh, no, let's put it this way. All the Muslim states voted against it. And you can ask yourself, what is common to, say, Oman and Afghanistan and Turkey? Well, there's one thing common. This religiously motivated resistance to the idea of Jewish self-rule. First, for Jews being a nation, and then for their deservedness of a homeland. Yes? That was against everything that they've been brought up by. And you can ask the question continuously, what is common today, okay, to left-wing anti-imperialist socialist circles and is Islamist? Again, the idea of unable to stomach the idea of Jews being a nation, that a nation state is something positive, not necessarily negative, and that Jews will have one in the Middle East. So it goes throughout the history. We are seeing this inability to internalize this simple idea that you and I understand it's natural and doesn't require any defense. Okay, the whole world believed it was natural in 1947, and I go back even to the February of 1947, when the Secretary General of the Arab League, Azam Pasha, explained to Abba Ibn in the Savoy Hotel in London, saying, "You Zionists are too rational. We don't think that way. We have to attempt to kill you. We must do that because it's not a shame to try and to fail. What is a shame is not to try." So that's why when I say xenophobia, which has an element of irrationality in it, I wasn't the first one who claimed that this resistance to Zionism is irrational. Azam Pasha himself, the Secretary General of the Arab League, mentioned that irrationality element in that ideology. So let's go that far. Okay, now the word xenophobia serves many purposes. Number two, it rhymes with Islamophobia. You know, and Islamophobia, as you and I know, is the cardinal original sin in Western civilization. It's something that you don't want to be accused of that or else. Okay? Well, we want to have the same kind of status. We want Zionism to be protected with the same reverence and intensity that Islam is being protected on college campuses. And don't tell me that we should not equate religion with a political ideology. No, Zionism for us is not a political opinion. Zionism for us is part of our identity, and religions do not have a monopoly on human sensitivity, on definition of identity. We are identity-driven Zionists. And I can go to a great length of explaining to every Jew what he or she feels internally, emotionally, and unpack it in using academic vocabulary to make it sound scientific. Yes, we are Zionists by identity. And so that's the second reason why the word xenophobia is important. And the third one is uh, we have to stop apologizing or explaining ourselves, pleading for our innocence. As I look at camp on the college campuses, constantly we are being, and Israel is being attacked for one reason or another. You know, this is the BDS very strong tactics is accuse Israel of something. It doesn't matter what. It varies from years to years and from people to people. Accuse Israel of something, and what's important is not whether the resolution passes or defeated. What's important is you have a microphone and a stage, and innocent bystanders listen to, oh, Israel is being accused of something again. And that's what they want to create, an atmosphere where Israel is sitting on the accused bench. This is their purpose, the final purpose. They don't care about what is Israel being accused. Once you put Israel on an accused bench and you defend it, say, no, she's innocent, you lost the game. You serve their purpose. We should not continue to defend ourselves. We should start attacking. So when you say you are a xenophobe, when you are a xenophobic racist, you are accusing your accuser of something that he or she cannot stomach, are not used to, and they hit the roof when you tell them you are a xenophobic racist. So that is important that we are creating symmetry of accusation. You accuse us, and we accuse you of something even more horrible that you accuse us. Yes, you are a genocide enabler. And I'm telling this to each one of my colleagues on my university. Whenever they start libeling Israel, I call them, you are a genocide enabler. And I base it on facts. I base it on, not, I wouldn't say scientific methodology, but on a reasonable expectation of what the result of would be of dismantling Israel, which UC is advocating. Yeah, they are genocide enablers. So whenever you hear Israel is being accused of genocide, come back and create a symmetry of accusation.
So, Judea, and thank you for that long explanation, which is, critical to understand. You've been on campus and you've been at UCLA for, I think at this point, close to 50 years.
55
And
years.
55 years. Okay, sorry. And you're the only person that I know, and you and I have had this conversation offline, who is the closest to the Chancellor of UCLA. We saw all the riots that were going on, during the height of the encampment. Is that message that you just described to us now, did that resonate and have that effect that you're talking about with the leadership of UCLA? Did they understand what you're describing to us and all of us have seen on the ground?
They understand. They are not ready to take action yet, but things are changing. Give you an example. 1 month ago, you know this pseudo academic called Noura Erakat from Rutgers. She came over and gave us a seminar. She was invited to give a seminar on exactly on the anniversary of the date where the UN has declared Zionism to be a form of racism. And she wants to renew this idea in UCLA. Okay? So some departments invited her. I call them some departments because I don't think they deserve the title departments. They invited her for this seminar, and lo and behold, on that very same day, on the very same hour, or let's say 2 hours after, we had another seminar called Is Anti-Zionism Racism? So our question was opposing but symmetrical, right? And we had over 100 in attendance, and they came out with a resolution, yes, and it generated a determination among the faculty and among the students. Yes, we can fight back with their own words. They are the racists. And it gave a signal to all the racists in the faculty that things have changed. From now on, if you blame Zionism for a crime one or two, you are going to be blamed with the same title, with the same crime one and two, because you deserve that blame. So it's a change of atmosphere. They understand that they now will be exposed and shamed. And we understand that we have the right to do that, and we have the arena, and we have 400 professors signed up for that idea of standing up for Zionism on campus. It's a change of atmosphere. So I believe that gives me some optimism. Now,
Okay.
as far as the administration, I keep on, every time I see an administrator, I remind him that as long as you avoid saying the word Zionism, and by the way, in the entire history of University of California, in the entire glorified history of DEI or EDI, you wouldn't find the word Zionism spelled out with all 5 letters. It doesn't exist. They avoid it like a plague. You and I know why. Okay? And so I'm keep on telling them, as long as you avoid this word, you haven't done a thing to combat anti-Semitism. You are just trying to cover up for inaction. As I'm doing my job, if each one of your members send an email to the administration, say, as long as you avoid spelling out the word Zionism, you haven't done a thing. And moreover, my strategy now is shame 5 anti-Zionism per day. Okay? Expose them and give them by name and say, so and so have made this statement. This is a genocide enabling statement. Just publicize it among your students. First among your students. It will propagate. Shame 5 anti-Zionists per day.
Thank you for that. No, it's important. Naming and shaming is indeed part of the strategy that we've seen, and that does help. Alex, I'm going to
You
turn it
see,
over to
these
you.
people are not used to be shamed.
Of
They
course not.
see themselves as champions of human rights and other universal principles.
Well, we've also seen since 10/7, obviously, the pride and zeal of support for Hamas, ISIS, and everything else. So there is another facet that no, but they're not ashamed of their actions. The opposite is true.
The nice thing also with the word xenophobia is the following. I don't know any anti-Semite who, who admits to be anti-Semite. On the other hand, I know many anti-Zionists who are proud of being anti-Zionism. Okay? So they cannot deny their shame. Let's take advantage of that.
Okay, fair enough. Alex?
Um, Let me go back to a point that you that you started off with, which is irrationality, and the the rationality that is inherent in in particular in Muslim opposition to Jewish self-rule, sovereignty, autonomy, however one wants to put it, but particularly in the context of the nation state. And it's this is theological. It's built in from the very beginning. It has proven impossible to overcome in certainly in recent years, but really over the long haul as well. So my question has to do with left wing opposition and the irrationality that has been displayed, particularly since about 1967. Now, the global left in the for most of the 20th century was moderately in favor of the existence of Israel, of Zionism, of Jewish autonomy. Jews were viewed as another and also particularly deserving minority after World War II. But after 1967, this is very much switched, and it's now profoundly evident as a central theme or the central theme of global leftist discourse. And is this so? My question is, where does this irrationality come from? Is it inherent to the logic of left wing thought? Um, is it an artifact of communism that's been implanted into left wing thought by the Soviet Union and its successors, China, um, and so on? And can it be removed in some way?
I agree with you. It's a different, it's a meme of a different character when we compare it to the Muslim irrational basis. It was, I think, primarily it is related to the guilt that the West feel about colonial times, and I think the Soviets managed to tie the two. This guilt with the idea that Israel is an imperialist. It began with Israel being an imperialist instrument in the hands of the great imperialists like United States, and now it is on its own an imperialist endeavor. Okay? That is the main, I think, main idea, and eventually it morphs and assumes its own labels. Okay? It becomes ridiculously connected with equations such as Zionism, racism, genocide, ethnic cleansing, and so forth. Okay, it's not hard to implant a new meaning in the mind of a Western child growing up under, education system like the way we have it. And they succeeded. And we should not play that, we should not play the game. So I agree with you. It's a different nature, but I think its basis is the guilt of imperialism, of colonialism. But when you go down and explain to people what colonialism is and where Israel stands in that spectrum of colonialism, I think some understand it, and that's one purpose of my book. So, what is where Israel is the typical anti-colonialist endeavor. I think I might even quote Nancy Pelosi, who said that Zionism is the most noble endeavor in the 20th century.
Well, this has always struck me as the irony of the of post-colonial guilt and the argument that Israel is an imperialist colonialist outpost, in that it's one of the very few successful anti-imperial movements, a nation which resulted in a nation state after World War II. The other probably being India. I'm not sure you could qualify Pakistan as being an unreserved success in most respects. So there is this inversion, but to my mind, I always go back to the Jewish question and Marx, and the idea that it's Jewish exceptionalism and Jewish existence which forms the essential challenge to particular conceptions of modernity that is the offensive characteristic, and that for Jews to exist is an affront to whatever one's conception, Marxist, Soviet, Muslim concept or vision of the future, under the Ummah, under the party, under whatever super condition, but Jews wanting to exist and do their own thing, and in the modern idiom wanting to be a state, is the ultimate affront. So the affront itself morphs over time, but
you put it very, very clearly, and I agree with it. I say Israel is hated by leftist element because it defies their textbooks.
Yes.
It is a successful nation state. And that's exactly what the textbook says should not occur. Nation state must be a failure, must be non-democratic, tyrannical, and whatever, right? And here comes Israel. And you have this movement that no one can deny, transformation of a tribe of middlemen from nowhere, in cruel poverty, into a world center of science, entrepreneurship, and arts. Okay? It's against every textbook that my friends in the social science department grew up with. Okay? So that's one thing. The other one is what is really stands behind this insistence of Jews to have a homeland. And in my opinion, it is an expression of a desire to be equal. It's a Jewish quest for normalcy, especially in our world. When a person is characterized by his or her state, where you come from. Oh, from Mexico. I know something about Mexico. Now I know how to characterize you. But this cannot be done about Jews as long as they didn't have a state. Now, so Zionism is the Jewish quest for normalcy. And I can give you some examples. Okay, you know what's the first Hebrew novel, a novel, a novel,
Novel.
first Hebrew
Novel.
novel. Yes, it, it
There,
was it was published in 1853, 50 years before Herzl. No, it was named Ahavat Zion, the love of Zion, by Abraham Mapu in Kovna. And what was the secret? Why it spread like in 4 editions throughout the Mediterranean Sea, all the communities, including North Africa. What was special about this novel? He presented life as normal, with its all normal characteristics. They had the conmen and thieves and military persons, pimps and prostitutes, okay, and everything. Normal life under the King Chizkiyahu in the 7th century BC, in the first time, during the time of the first era. It hit Jews as a thunder. We were once normal. We had thieves. Wow! And it went to several editions, and many Zionists claim that this book made them Zionists because it told them, yes, we were once normal, and we wish to be normal again. Okay. I'm bringing it as an example, and I'll continue. I have many examples in the book. This is our battle cry for normalcy. And I have a statement next to it that a Jew will never be accepted as equal in the West as long as Israel is not equal in the family of nations. It's a prerequisite for Jews to attain equal status in the West. And until now, as long as Israel is a pariah state, you as a Jew will not be treated equal. You will be treated with tolerance, treated with protection as a minority that needs protection. You will be admired for your scientific words, but not equal, because your state, Israel, is a pariah state. So that is a prerequisite for our equality.
that brings us also to.
Okay.
Oh no! All right. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
No. I was going to like just as a segue to what you're saying. As far as the abnormality, which obviously you're highlighting, which is again parachuted on everything that the state of Israel does today is abnormal because of its Zionist character. So when you talk about in the book about coexistence and about solutions for this, I mean, where do you see some of the questions that have come up, and where are you seeing some kind of positivity for a solution? I mean, in the essence of trying to create that normalcy, because what we know is, historically speaking, if you look at the configuration of the state of Israel in any way, shape, or form, the way it's described today and it's engineered, every possible old anti-Semitic trope has been parachuted onto the state of Israel and to make it as abnormal as possible. And so where is, what I always like about our conversations, Judea, you're always an optimistic guy. So where do you drive, where does your optimism come from? And where do you see sparks, a little bit of hope that you think that can change this Sisyphean task of how we are looked at?
I have two answers. First of all, to what's happening in Israel. What's happening is really abnormal, and it's very worrisome, and it's almost devastatingly abnormal. But first of all, the abnormality, the way it is presented, okay, a great part of it is a result of Arab resistance to Zionism. It's not characteristic of Zionism. It's a it's a result, causal result of the resistance to a natural movement called Zionism. And here I have a good example in my Book of Why. Who do you blame for the fire that broke up and burned your house? The guy who light a match, or the guy who did not empty the oxygen from the house? That is a classical example in a theory of causality. We blame the guy who lit a match, right? Because houses normally do have oxygen. It's a natural flow of air. You don't expect a house without oxygen, okay? And that is the idea about Zionism. Zionism is the normal course of history. Those who resist Zionism are doing something against the wind. I know. Sometimes I use the metaphor of spitting against the wind. Okay, that is the nature of the Arab resistance to Zionism. So they are to be blamed for many of the excesses and abnormal behavior, including the growth of the Messianic movement in Israel. Okay? And all the mistakes that have been made by the government of Israel, not all, but many of them, yeah? You have to look at things in perspective. Here you have a situation where for 78 years you put people in a abnormal situation. The whole conflict from 1948 until today is constitute of putting millions of people, survivors and of Holocaust, you put them into an abnormal situation without a day of normalcy. Think about it. This has never been done in history. The United Nations gave us a charter to live normal life after 1947, correct? And here we have the world sits down and enjoy looking Israel rise to defend itself. No, we have a right to not need to defend ourselves, and no one is claiming that. This is our right. Okay, so the whole period, 78 years, is a period of constant harassment which is unjustified. Now we go and talk about what's going to happen tomorrow with with the decision of the government of Israel to vote for the Chok HaPtor, okay, of releasing the Haredim from army duties, okay, which is against everything that Herzl dreamed of, and everything that even Begin dreamed of, and even Jabotinsky. Okay, I don't have an answer to that. It worries me, and I'm ached together with my family in Israel about the future of this country.
Thank you for that. Alex, go back to you.
Sure. I think normalcy is an interesting theme to pursue, and normalcy of the state of Israel, normalcy of Jews in the world, with and without, inside and outside of Israel. And I think my question is, why so many, not a majority, but not an insignificant number in the West, choose to be abnormal and to choose to oppose the existence of Israel. Is this in your mind, a reflection of the old Jews and power problem? That anything that seems to accrue power to the individual, to a community, to a state is automatically bad because the Jewish experience has been powerlessness, and that's somehow been good. Or is it or is it a means to acceptance
I think it has
within?
two levels. The deep level is religious. So that's the deep level, but it metastasized in the recent years to something that has to do with power and so on. But it starts with the idea that Jews, by their own presence, by their own life, constitute an affront to the truth of Christianity. It started there. Christians, in particular, even more than Muslims, saw the humiliation of Jews or the powerless of Jews to be a proof of the rightness of their religion. Otherwise, what made them quit and form their own religion of truth? If you're a Christian in the Middle Ages and you saw a Jew having children, it is a denial of the truth of the gospel. So the very existence of Jews demanded their downgrading into a powerless minority. And it has to be visible in all possible ways. So the formation of the ghetto, yes, we are protecting you, but you are different. Then you're under protection. You're not under normal situation. The resistance for normality is deeply entrenched in the Christian theology. But this is not what drives the leftists today, of course, because it has gone through several stages of imposing powerlessness, first by the Soviets, and then, of course, by the Nazis. And today, we just you are different. So if you are different, perhaps you don't need a state of your own. Right? State of your own means that you are equal. And you are not equal on the ladder, on the ecological ladder. You are different. You have to know your place. That
So
is
for
the idea.
so for Jews who adopt this attitude, very much a minority, but a vocal minority, Jews who don't want Israel to be an equal member of the community of nations, Jews who feel that that fellow Jews should not have equality or power like that. Is this simply, in your mind, an adoption of a left-wing theology, or is this a kind of Stockholm syndrome that is being displayed? I've
Are
always
you
wondered
talking
about
about
the
the
roots.
psychology of Peter, like people like Peter Beinart?
Yes.
For example.
Well, it requires a sophisticated psychologist to analyze that. I made few remarks about that phenomena. Yes. I think it's a combination of number one is a thrive for social acceptance, and you do people give up good pounds of flesh from their identity for social acceptance. Yes, we saw it even last week in California with Scott Wiener. Yeah. So it is a phenomena. The other one is Stockholm. Yeah, I don't have a control over my abusive husband, but I have a control over me. So maybe my dinner should be improved. I should prepare a better dinner for him, right? Because the more he abuses me, the nicer wife I would be. Okay, because I haven't done my what is expected of me. Yeah, that's true. It also plays a role. There are many things, but eventually it comes down to one thing, that the strength of your identity has not been entrenched. You were willing to give that part of your identity for other reasons, whether it is social acceptance or whether it is, you say, playing the illusion of being in control. It's mainly people who understand what Judaism is, who have studied the history of Jews, okay, will not go through that process. They don't need a psychiatrist because they will remain Zionist. If not Zionist, but verbally they will be they are remain Zionist emotionally and internally.
Let me
Well,
ask.
in this respect, I'll just make one last comment. The contrast between, in particular, the American Jewish community, which is very far flung and very diverse and very safe and very fat, and let's say, and has a 400-year experience by and large of security and comfort. In contrast, let's say, with France, where the Jewish community, many of whom came from North Africa as refugees, many of whom are the descendants of survivors or at least communities that were decimated, have a very, very different view in terms of religion, in terms of identity, in terms of the strength of their connection to the community and to the tradition. So I think, it's an irony of history that the world's largest and most prosperous and powerful Jewish community is in its sense the weakest, or has weak roots when it should have stronger roots.
But you see, I think there's a new realizations in the American Jewry now. What's happening in campuses and in the streets, okay, forces the Jews to decide. And I see and envision the possibility that we are going to split into two nations. It's happening already. Families are splitting today, on the issue of Israel. Yeah, it's going to happen. And we are going to have the Peter Baynard taking a chunk. I would assume not more than 5 or 10% of our people. And the rest are going to excommunicate the first. I wish we had strong enough leadership to take a position and say that these peoples do not represent us. They shouldn't speak for us. Well, they say today, but not with the instrument of excommunication. Yeah, and they're simply ex-Jews.
And, to that point, which is also a phenomenon that we've also seen over the past few years, which has not been acknowledged or commonplace to say that there actually are anti-Semitic Jews. Again, a phenomenon that, is a growing phenomenon, but, has never, has not been spoken loudly enough. And something that we see in a growing, the environment of the I'm Jewish but narrative, where they've used and abused cosmetically, what their Jewish is about, and that is indeed a fifth column within the Jewish community.
But I don't think they call themselves anti-Semitic.
No,
Even people like Ilan Pape doesn't call himself anti-Semitic. No, he loves Jews. He just hate Israel and the
right.
idea of Zionism. Yeah, they
He
always
likes
cover themselves. Yeah.
the kind of Jews that he likes, or like, the ones that, have been able to divorce themselves from Zionism. Let me, just keeping an eye on the clock. I'm just gonna, and I know we're close to wrapping it all up. So let me ask, I'll ask one more question from the audience here, to your earlier point, and then we'll have to unfortunately wrap it up for today. So in your earlier comment, when we were talking about 47, Carol, is asking a question here. You were talking about the Jews are too rational, and the fact that, the fact that we are, our rationality is something this is not, something that we can not work with, as far as this is not how we act. So she's asking a simple question. How do we clarify or resolve or fix that irrationality? Is there a way in your mind where we can fix, part of that?
I don't have any remedy for irrationality except rationality. That is a weapon that we have. We're thinking clearly. And I don't have any advice for that except to insist and to adapt their tactics that I talked already before. Symmetry of accusation. If
Got it.
somebody is irrational, keep on labeling him or her as irrational. Okay? And if I had a chance to talk with what's her name, Nora Erakat, when she comes to you, I'll tell her, you are damn irrational. Be aware of that. Okay. So that's our only way.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, Judea,
But
you
as
get
long as we accept them as rational, we lost the game. We should be assertive enough to expose their irrationality in
getting them
any form.
on the same playing field. Got it. Look, Judea, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and I want to thank you for joining us, and sharing your thoughts and for all the work that you do and have done over the years. You have been really a force to be reckoned with. All the hard work you've been doing at UCLA and all over the place. So I encourage everybody to buy your book, take your words to heart. And obviously we look forward to having you back at a later time. But I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. Judea, above all, sharing your thoughts, and of course to my friend and colleague Alex Jaffe for sharing the stage with me and having our conversation as always. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. So everybody have a good day and look out for future webinars that'll be coming in the next week or so. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much.